Green Bay is famous for the Green Bay Massacre, which took place in 1978. This was one of the darkest, most controversial days in Jamaica's history. Green Bay is situated in the south section of the Portmore St. Catherine Parish. The Green Bay Massacre was a covert operation on the 5th of January 1978, in which 5 Jamaica Labour Party supporters were shot dead after being lured into an ambush at the Green Bay firing range. They were lured by members of the Jamaican Defence Force. If it's the first time you're hearing of this, I'm sure you're wondering, just like me, what's the reason behind this brutality and what's the importance of the JLP supporters to this operation? Well, the event took place as a result of a secret operation by a special unit of the JDF called the Military Intelligence Unit. This operation was executed while the People's National Party was in power. The soldiers involved in the massacre were later acquitted of murder charges, but in the minds of many, the Green Bay affair was never resolved. The victims were from the areas of the JLP stronghold of the Southside community in downtown Kingston. They were identified as being too closely linked to the opposition party, JLP, so they were singled out as being prime targets for assassination by members of the PNP. At the time, the Prime Minister was Michael Manley, and the primary aim of the mission was that the Military Intelligence Unit was to take all reasonable steps to ensure the removal of anyone who was a threat to the smooth running of the PNP's government. It was alleged that the JLP supporters were promised guns and jobs in the military if they cooperated with the government. Undercover agents of the MIU went into the Southside community and infiltrated the Southside's posse, which was a local gang that operated in the area. That posse was led by the now assassinated Franklin Allen, otherwise known as Chubby Dread. There were 14 men in this gang that were originally targeted for assassination. They were promised jobs as drivers and bodyguards. Since the men needed the arms and the funding, they agreed.
And he said to myself, no one the man say me hear about it and not come. Because $300 enough money then time, you know. See?
And in the early hours of January 5th, 1978, they were picked up by an army ambulance and a minivan at the intersection of Holborn Street and Port Royal Street.
Well, them bring an ambulance and a van. Me going at the blue van up a last street. I'm just going at that city. See?
Destination, the Green Bay firing range. On arrival at the military base, the men were taken to a section of the range where they were given strict instructions not to move, as they would be picked up by other persons who would take care of their work requirements and supply them with arms, then be transported into Kingston.
And so every man to stand up, see in one place, that means don't set you up in front of the general purpose, which we don't know is that, see?
As soon as the MIU operatives drove off, a specially selected team of snipers from the JDF were laying in a bush in the nearby hills. The soldiers were armed with machine guns and pistols. After a signal from one of the MIU operatives, which was the firing of a single shot from his pistol, the sniper team then opened fire on the group of men from their nest in the hills. 5 men lost their lives after the hail of gunfire ceased, and the remainder fled into nearby bushes. At least 1 member entered the bay and was rescued by a passing fishing boat.
And then I got through the bush, so. Meantime, I got through the wide bush now. I see the road, I stop on it, I run little, come on, I can't go up at the gate. Until I end up reach, I look at hill light and see down at some, I couldn't track off, I know how deep it is. I'm taking time to go down on the rock. And like I see some fisherman, they're way out. And I said, wow.
An official statement released by the military was that the men were shot dead after they were surprised by a special strike force of soldiers doing target practice on the JDF artillery firing range at Green Bay. This report did not stick, and the people of Southside started to protest against the killings. Later, at a Spanish Town coroner's court, The jury found the JDF criminally responsible for the massacre and charged 5 people with conspiracy to murder. The overwhelming evidence was that the men were lured to Green Bay and ambushed by the soldiers. It further claims that they killed the men near to noon after being fired on, but no guns were found on the scene. In July 1978, warrants were issued by the Supreme Court for 10 members of the JDF for first-degree capital murder and conspiracy to commit murder. However, the cases were dismissed on the 8th of February 1982 due to insufficient evidence. And for the victims, a court awarded them a total of $5,500.
But there are people that say, "Oh, I get no money and things, you know." That's some bad-minded people. Till one day them just say, "Come in now, come and time now for the money." Well, when me get a 5,500, I'm just straight in my youth arm. We go to them and we go sons. Well, just give me. Can't joke that fool and take people for. Yeah. And I'm used to give the youth them some percentage a year time. One where them father dead pan it. Yeah. Till them just cut it off.
Delroy Griffiths, one of the 3 survivors of the brutal onslaught and the only one who still lives in Jamaica, said that he's not bitter with the JDF nor the government, but he wants his own situation to be given urgent attention. The other survivors from the central KINGSTON community of Southside escaped the shooting and lived to tell how they were lured to the JDF shooting range with promise of jobs, but ended up with bullets coming at them instead. The Jamaica Labour Party refused this verdict, but could do nothing to bring the perpetrators to justice as they were already acquitted by the courts. The PNP has always denied knowledge of the covert action that took the lives of men and said it was purely a military operation that was later justified. This incident is considered to be one of the worst acts of brutality in Jamaican history.
Well, me, you know, I try to go to the Maca now, see, and buck on a soldier. So me just breaks up on him, turn, same as how I turn, nobody change up my plane, just chuck, same as how I turn, just chuck, see me, I'm here, brrr, and say, yes, I'm going to kill you that. And then I go through the bush, so. There was road that them bring me down, so, and, boy, boss, you know, one thing, you know, I'm glad to me never dead, you know. So I'm can't do nothing else, because it's done, I said, done, gone, so already. See, you know, praise God and say, boy, I'm glad, sir, I'm not dead. Because in there, see me, and I tell you, even have to say, God, guide and protect me. Every minute of everyone, every second tick of the clock, guide and protect everyone, you know who deserve it. Even that, I have to say, me about my bed.